Now, we discussed some of the tips for performance improvement at the query level. Let's talk about some of the report design mistakes. In this example, we're looking at a dashboard that's making use of pie charts and gauges. Now, the problem is the pie charts are going to be harder to understand. They're really not something that's going to be commonly used as best practice when you're trying to represent a lot of data. So you can see in this particular pie chart, I mean, you have boxes that are overlapping each other, and it's just, there's nothing clear and easily understandable here. And you can also see that it doesn't really provide that much detail about the data. Now, what we're trying to show here, so with this report, the images are nice, but there's absolutely no detail to it. End users are going to need to know what our images are representing, and if they don't understand what it represents, I mean, you can't really expect them to effectively make decisions based on the current data that's being provided here. So leaving the end users to wonder what information is getting displayed is not going to be in your best interest either. Lastly, with this example here, there's so many areas in need of improvement, I'm not really for sure where to begin with. One of the few things that we'll just highlight with this is that the colors are way too bright on the eyes, and this is going to be harder for the end users to view, and it's actually taken away from what you want them to focus on. The chart selected in the bottom right corner, this is probably not the best idea right here, because obviously they're trying to display a lot of information or a lot of results, and you can see everything's kind of compiled together, and it's not effective with what it's trying to communicate. And then one of the most obvious things here is that there's no details. It's just mostly objects. So what we want to do now is we've talked about some of the mistakes that can be made with the design of these reports. Let's actually run through a real-world scenario. Okay, so we've been tasked with the responsibility of designing a report that displays multiple pieces of information for executives. They're going to have a board meeting and they want to share these results. So here are the questions that they need us to answer for them. One, how are we as the employees, how are our employee seasonal sales compared year over year? So we want to create a report that is going to show the line chart and the spark line chart that will display this information. We also want to know about the employees meeting the sales quotas for the month and for each category. And with this one, we want to use the matrix and embedded indicators that will display those results. And then lastly, their question is, how do the category sales for this month compare to sales for the same month in the previous years? So for this report, we're going to use a column chart and a data bar chart that's going to display this information. So what I'm going to do is kind of halt the PowerPoint slides real quick, and we are going to take a look at our bids environment. So let me just pull this over here. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time together, so I'm really trying to make the best use of the time that we do have. So I'm not going to create everything from scratch, and usually in my presentations we typically have some very intro level people watching, and we show, you know, what's a solution and what's a parameter and how do you create data sets and access shared data sources. So for this one, I went ahead, I have everything set up for that. We're going to just strictly talk about the designs, the steps in designing this particular report. So again, all the data sets, everything is set up. We're going to simply utilize the objects that are available to us. Now, the other thing, again, and I'll mention this, is the solution that we have here. I will make sure that by the end of the day today, you'll be able to go to the, bidn.com where I blog, and you can get a link to download the solution. All right, so we know what our requirements are for this particular report. Now it's up to us as designers to try to compile that information and have it displayed in one report. So we have our header sitting here, and there's a lot of fields that we're going to add in here, multiple objects that we're going to be using from our toolbox. So let me go ahead and get started with this. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our header is up here, but we need to add a text box to the right corner, and we're going to put that text box in here because when they render the report, we want the name of the report to be included in our report itself. So you can right-click up in the header, insert, and select text box. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit to the right corner. And I'm going to take from my built-in fields, report name. So when you render this, it's automatically going to display that report name here for us. Now, just below that text box, we want to add one more text box, and this is what we want to hold some specific values for our employee ID, report month, and report year. Now, we wanted to hold values from our parameter. So when we render that report, based off of who we've selected, it'll display those values in the header. So let me just add one more text box. Okay. All right. So first we're going to type in sales report 4. And then what we want to do is we want to create a placeholder to bring back those values. So I'm going to right-click inside the text box and select Create Placeholder. And I want to set an expression on that. So I hit FX in the value, and I need to pick what that value is. So I'm going to select it from my parameter options that I have available. And the first one I want to bring back is my employee ID. So I'm going to just simply double click that, and I don't want it to be the value, I want it to be a label. So if I click OK, so now we can see that I have my label there. And I'm going to do the same thing for report month and report year. So right click, create a placeholder, create the expression. I'm going to go to the parameters. I said the next one I want to do is report month. I'm going to change that to label. Select OK. And I'm going to add the report year. So right click. And let's go to the parameter. And we're going to double click report year. Change that to a label. And select OK.